Beth Ann.
What's up? I'm Ayla.
This is Let's Talk BL, a Boys Love podcast.
Welcome back to the podcast. It is Sunday, Series Sunday, that day of the week where we talk all things one series and one series only. And today we are going KBL.
I'm so excited.
I know.
This happens every once in a while. I feel like every once in a while a KBL takes the Twitter timeline by storm. That's really how I find a lot of these.
I was thinking about this because I was like, I already know what we're going to say. I was like, we're going to be like, oh my gosh, like for the first time in a long time, a KBL has hit. But then I realized, I was like, we literally say that every time. So like at this point, like it's not for the first time in a long time. Mm-mm. It's not every now and then. The KBLs are just hitting. Like we really need to stop saying that.
Yeah. I think it's because they just don't come out as often as the Thai BLs and really the Taiwanese BLs. They've been like pumping the Taiwanese BLs out just as fast as the Thai ones. And so, yeah, I think it's like the stream of how often these come out and how often people just start talking about them. Because what was the last big one that people really talked about?
I mean, it seems like there's always a KBL that someone's talking about.
So that's
why I was like, we really need to stop. Like, because I was thinking through it, like, yesterday when I was trying to prep for this. And I was like, I already know what we're going to say. We're going to be like, oh, my God, this hit. And this is the first time in so long. No, it's really not. Like,
yeah. I guess in the Korean world, there's just like, for me, I hear so much K-pop news all the time, and then suddenly it gets overtaken by like a KBL that's happening.
I think it's just that we're too ingrained in the Thai of it all.
For sure.
That's what it is. I don't think it has anything else to do with like the actual cadence of it or how often or how popular these things are. Like I think it's us, not them.
Yeah. It's the nature of our timeline for sure. Yeah, because I don't keep up with like a release schedule of the Korean. I'm just like whenever I see something or if ever I'm on Viki, which I guess this one's on iQIYI and they're getting to iQIYI every once in a while.
And there's a lot on Gaga too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's literally us, not them.
It depends on like what streaming site you go to first, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So Nuts and Bolts. This is 8 episodes. Super fast watch on iQIYI. It stars as Tae Myung-ha, Lee Tae-vin, Cha Yeon-woo, played by Cha Ju-won, Chun Sang-won, played by Oh Min-soo, An Kyung-hoon, played by Cha Woon-ki, who was on Boys Planet.
Yes, which may as well have been a BL because that's all anybody talked about.
Oh my God.
With the Boys Planet.
It's true. And I still see daily people posting, especially for Cha Ju-won, because that boy's built. Like he has the face of like a sweet baby boy. And then he's like swole. It's wild. People are like, what? It's funny.
Okay. Synopsis. 29-year-old Tae Myung-ha experiences a bewildering twist of fate when suddenly finds himself transported into a fictional online game where he inhabits the body of a 19-year-old character. Soon, Tae Myung-ha embarks on a quest within the virtual world to bring happiness to a character named Cha Yeon-won. Despite his humble upbringing, Cha Yeon-won has managed to excel in the National Track and Field Championships, maintaining a remarkable reputation among his peers due to his handsome looks and athletic physique. Chun Sang-won hails from an affluent family and becomes emotionally entangled with Tae Myung-ha. His involvement adds complexity to the developing relationship between Tae Myung-ha and Cha Yeon-won. An Kyung-hoon, introverted and reserved, supports and assists Tae Myung-ha on his mission within the virtual world.
That is a solid synopsis.
It's a really long synopsis. I think it's interesting that they were like, we need to tell you about all the characters.
Yeah.
Which I do appreciate because
Shout
a lot
out.
of times with like not just KBLs but K-dramas, I think it's really easy to get confused about who is who and like whose backstory is whose because it all does kind of blend together. That's just sort of the nature of that storytelling style.
Yeah, and for me, it's the names. I think because a lot of times they use their full government name because that's the nature of the language. It's a lot of Korean, and while I'm familiar with Korean, the names all like, I mean, you have Tae and Cha and An and like So for me, it kind of all runs together. Whereas, like, of course, with the Thai, it's like you get like a Poom or a First. Like, those names are a little easier for my brain to process. So yes, I would say with these, it was nice to get like a sneak peek of all the characters.
Yeah,
these are the ones you need to know.
It's interesting that they're like, these are who they are and what their backgrounds are. Because for me, it's the backgrounds that run together in Korean storytelling because of like the way you have to really pay attention hard.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be like not looking at you. Like, you can't look down at your phone. Something else can't be happening in the house. Like, nobody can be like coming in the door while you're trying to watch this and like whatever, being annoying and trying to talk to you or whatever. Like, none of that can happen when you're watching a Korean story.
Yeah.
Because the nature of it is it does flow so smoothly that it's really easy for me to get their like backgrounds mixed up. I'll be like, no, he was totally kidnapped, and it turns out no, it was like somebody else that got kidnapped.
It was the sudden childhood trauma that you have to watch out for. You're like, wait, why are we being kidnapped?
Yeah,
and
you
like,
have to know everybody's like situation, but it can be very confusing. Now, all of that layered on top of this show, which I'm going to be completely honest with you, was really confusing for me. I have admitted before, I am stupid. Like, I'm just dumb, okay? And this show, I said this about The Eighth Sense too. I was like, I think maybe I'm just too dumb to get it. And like, I thought I understood, and then we went to lunch with Jovi and Eileen, and we were talking about it with them, and it was Jovi that had interpreted it a completely different way, and I was like, wait, did I get it wrong? So genuinely, I cannot wait. I hope a lot of people comment and like tell us what their interpretation is. And this is just a friendly reminder that like this is a TV show. No one is right or wrong.
Yeah.
Your interpretation versus someone else's interpretation doesn't mean that one person is right or better than anyone else. So like, let's all be kind to each other because that didn't happen with The Eighth Sense.
I think that's the mark of a good story too. Like, we forget that like stories get interpreted so many different ways, just like an interaction in real life based on your previous history, where you go into something and you're like, no, I saw it this way because like my background, I've had experience in this, like,
or not even your background. Like, I feel like it doesn't even have to be that deep. Like, it can literally be like you read the subtitle and like you read it one way and somebody else put emphasis on it, like what another word, a different place. Like, because we are watching this with subtitles, right? And so language is very like emphasis heavy. So you can say a sentence, you can be like, don't go over there, right? Versus don't go over there. Those mean two different things, but it's the same words, right? So like, it can literally be as simple as one person reading something and putting emphasis on one word versus another.
Well, and different places got different translations because this was available on Gaga Ooh La La in certain parts of the world. And I even saw people, and this has happened a lot lately, where people will pull it and be like, this translation on iQIYI means something totally different the way they translated it on Gaga. And so like, your translators are different.
So again, yes, I cannot wait. I hope a lot of people comment and tell us what their interpretation of this was, because my interpretation, probably, as I learned after just chatting about this show with my friends, is probably different than yours. Although I think you and I ended up in the same interpretation of it.
Yeah. Okay, so this story was really interesting. It obviously wasn't unique because it felt very much like My Dating Sim, but like make it dark.
Yeah, and I
make it more intertwined.
So I argued, because this came up too, that like this one was dark. I was like, I don't think it was dark.
Okay.
I don't think this was dark. I think that like this had an overarching like godlike storyline. And so I think a lot of people took this as like, oh, like there's depth to it and therefore it's dark. I don't think it was dark the way that like Eighth Sense was dark.
Interesting. You're talking about the subject matter.
Right.
I think for me, the darkness comes from, trigger warning, I guess, the overarching suicide of it all.
Right.
Because, spoiler alert, you find out that Tae Myung-ha in the real world has committed suicide, and that's what got him to that, like, the opening scene where he's in the bar, which is kind of funny if you think about it, that like once you die, like what's the like middle world called? Is that purgatory? Where purgatory is a bar. You're just hanging out in a bar until you figure out if you like know the meaning of life, or if you're gonna spend eternity wherever you spend eternity.
Yeah, I think that, see, that's like, I don't, so for example, I wouldn't call Until We Meet Again dark.
Ooh, interesting. I've never thought about
like,
that.
That's not the word I would choose to describe Until
What
We Meet
would
Again.
What would you describe it as?
I would say, like, that it has depth.
Okay.
Right?
Oh,
like,
that's
I think that depth and darkness a lot of times can, like, because I think that for me, darkness has a sense of, like, hopelessness.
Okay.
Versus, like, any type of show with, like, where there's hope and a greater lesson to be learned and, like, there is something that comes out of it in the end, like Until We Meet Again, like Love for Love's Sake.
Mm-hmm.
That's not dark. That's hopeful, not hopeless.
I see. Yeah, I will say it felt a little dark in the beginning, and then at some point you felt like, because Tae Myung-ha felt a little hopeless through the beginning, right? Like when he's interacting with this world and he remembers that he's 29, but he doesn't know his own backstory from the real world.
Right, he doesn't remember.
Right, but he also doesn't have context for his new world. He just knows he's like Tae Myung-ha, who's 29 years old, and now he's found himself in a high school and he's 19 years old. And he remembers purgatory, but he doesn't really remember what, like, he remembers that the guy that he was there with.
But he doesn't know that he's dead.
Right.
He doesn't know that, and this is where we, like, different people, I think, like, thought about this differently, because some people were like, no, he knew, and I was like, no, he didn't know, but then he did, like,
until he was sitting at the desk writing,
he started
right?
Getting, like, the achievements or
right.
whatever, right? Because it was like a game, and so once he started, like, achieving, like, understanding, right, of, like, the greater meaning of life and stuff like that,
yes, happiness, yes,
then he started remembering, and then he basically earned his full story.
Right, because they explicitly say it. I think it's when he's sitting at that desk with the pen, and it's like, do you want to see your past? Like, do you, like, the real person, want to see your past?
Right, but, like, he still thinks he's just in a game. Yeah, he doesn't know. It's not until much later that he, like, understands and realizes.
Here's my question, and it's my question with every type of story like this. How chill would you be if you, Ayla, found yourself in an alternate world, completely, like, no context, and you're like, I'm now 19 years old and I'm back in high school? Like, would you, so many of these characters just, like, embrace it. They're like, yeah, let's do this. They don't spend a ton of time being like, what? Or, like, confused. Like, they just, like, run with it. Do you think yourself, I don't know how I would handle just being, like, thrown into a new world, being, like, taken. But I guess if you don't have any memory of your old life, like, you wouldn't really stay in confusion, or, like.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm the kind of person where I'm like, never show fear. Like, never let them, like, even if you're, like, really upset and, like, whatever, like, you can't let anybody else know that. That's weakness, and that's BS. Like, you can't do that.
So you just gotta.
I for sure would just roll with it.
You gotta make the boy happy.
Like, in front of people. Yeah. And then, like, when I went back to my room or whatever.
Yeah, there was a lot of sweet moments in this too, because you see Tae Myung-ha fully embrace this challenge of making Cha Yeon-woon happy. Like, I liked the game aspect of it. Like, it was very funny. I found myself being like, ooh, what's the fondness level gonna be?
Yeah, well, and it basically was like, the kind of, like, the greater message was like, don't be a dick, right? Like, it was like, be a nice person, like, be kind to others, like, even. And I think what was interesting about this is that it was more about, like, it might feel uncomfortable for you, and I thought, like, that was a really interesting, like, twist on it, that, like, the reason he's in this situation, and the reason that, like, I mean, essentially, like, the higher power, God, whoever, right?
Yeah,
whatever you believe in, like,
the storyteller,
right? Like, the higher power in this universe has put him in this situation is because, like, he himself, like, was too caught up in, like, his own, like, I'm uncomfortable, I'm unhappy, and then, like, so that he couldn't realize that, like, it can bring you happiness to just be kind to others and to make other people happy. And so that's why, like, yeah, there's this fondness meter and there's like all of this stuff, is because like the point is to sort of like teach him and show him that like you can find happiness and you can feel like better and more confident, whatever, about yourself if you think about others first, like if you put others first.
And I liked the story about, or I like the idea that what makes others happy isn't always the thing that you think it will be, right? Like he gets him those new shoes and at first he's like, why? Right? Like he would immediately think like, oh, this boy needed new running shoes. Like it's gonna make him happy to get this thing. And like to have to think through, like every time they showed the fondness meter of like, just because you did something that you thought would make the other person happy, like you're not really thinking about that other person.
Yeah, you have to really think about that other person. Like you can't just be like,
it was very cool.
Well, I bought you a present, or like it's that whole situation, this age-old thing that like I feel like this is a theme in lots and lots of media, like across the world, of like, and I think that we as humans are very quick to forget this, and we get very defensive of quick to be like, well, it's not my fault you took it that way, right? Like that, like I can't control the way you feel about what I'm going to say or do. It's like, well, yes, you can. All you have to do is think about the other person, and like if you know them and get to know them, you'll know like, okay, even though my natural instinct is to do X, if I do X, even though I don't mean it that way, they're not going to see it that way. And so in order for me to be like considerate and actually thinking about this other person, I have to do Y.
It's like the whole idea of love languages and loving people their love language, because if you love someone who's a physical touch person by giving them words of affirmation, they're going to be like, ew, this is weird. I don't like this. And they're going to come at it being probably offended sometimes. They're going to be like, why do you keep doing this thing that you know doesn't like bring me love and like show me actual love? And so it is an interesting
it's complicated thought. And you see it in the show, like especially with Myung-ha, because like you see him like not really understanding why it's not working sometimes, and he's getting frustrated, but like it's also a little bit like, I like that it wasn't all on him, that like you is the other person. And so like specifically like in this story, like Cha Yu-woon had to like sort of understand that like, okay, he is coming from like a good place and he is trying. And so there was this like push and pull of like, sure, you can't go into situations and be like, well, I can't help the way you feel about that. Like, I did something nice, and I'm going to completely disregard the way you feel or think about it because I know what I meant, and that's all that matters. And if you cared at all about me, you would understand how I am as a person. It's like, sure, you can't go into it like that, but the other side is, like, you can't
read minds.
The other side is, like, the other person, in this case, Yoo-woon, had to, like, realize like, okay, like they are trying and they don't mean this, even though it hurt my feelings. They didn't mean to not hurt my feelings, but like even though it made me confused, they didn't mean to make me confused.
I agree. The dynamic between Myung-ha and Yoon-woo, like the development of their relationship through this whole series was really interesting, because you have like their relationship growth as like interacting with each other, but it was really about them growing and evolving as characters
like
through
individually.
That's
what I liked about this.
That is the mark of a good show. There was another show recently that did the same thing, where it was like it's kind of about the romance, but like there's so much more to it, and I think it gives so much more groundedness when you're developing people. In Pit Babe, that's what it was. Is that you're developing these characters outside of the romance, but seeing how it works as they are a couple as well. And I think that makes for such a more interesting show than just like, they're two boys, maybe they want to kiss. I really love the side characters in this show. I thought the dynamic that they brought, especially Chung Sang-woon, when he's like, I like you. why don't you like me? I need you to like me. Like with Myung-ha is like such a funny dynamic because I feel like you don't get that a lot in KBLs, this character being really forward and being like, but what about me? I like you.
Yeah, like the last time I remember this happening in a KBL was Light on Me, and I loved it in Light on Me.
Yep.
Like it's just so refreshing from like a K-drama.
Yes. Oh
like,
my God,
even
yes.
just from a K-drama standpoint, like it's so refreshing to have them say what they mean and mean what they say.
From like Ep 3 instead of Ep 12 or Ep 11 where they're like, oh yeah, I like you.
In a lot of ways, this show reminded me of Light on Me as well.
I can see that.
Yeah. I think that this show was like an interesting mix of like Light on Me, My Dating Sim, and Until We Meet Again. It was like a weird like mishmash, but also its own thing because there was that sort of like individual growth that had to happen.
Yeah, this is one of those, I think KBLs do this really well where they set them in high school or college, but they don't feel juvenile.
Yeah, I didn't realize how many KBLs were set in high school until recently. I was like, Jesus, Lord have mercy, can we just get out of high school?
And I think it's because
like, why are we in high school?
Yeah, I think it's because like the Thai just make it so culturally high school and college. Like the focus is so much on them being that age, whereas like the KBLs are like they're in high school, but like
at least in Thailand, at least with the Thai BLs, they're at least in college.
Yeah, a lot of times, yeah. The Koreans
for the most part, right? Like I would say the Thai high school BLs are like fewer and farther between.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I will give it up for the Koreans. While they are in high school, although this was really funny because like you have a 29-year-old
right,
who's in like
it was
high
like
school.
it's like a never been kissed situation where like it's like ooh, is this
13
weird?
going
You're
on
like,
30? Yeah,
is this like low-key predatory in a sense? Like it's like hard, and I think that's why it had to be so focused on individual growth.
Yeah,
because like we recently saw this situation in a Thai BL as where there was like a time travel situation and there was like a much older man, but like, and it was this weird of like, is it predatory or like is it not? Like technically it's one of those situations where it's like technically it's not, but like it kind of is because like developmentally they're in a different place.
Because that's always the argument of like maturity wise, mentally wise, not physically,
right? Like developmentally,
yeah.
And so like it does kind of walk this very fine line of like, is it like copacetic to throw like a late 20s 30s year old into like a situation with high school like I can see throwing them in with like university students, sure, but like high school. Yeah.
And I think that's what lent itself to kind of a pureness through like a majority of this series where you could see that like Tae Myung-ha was like excited to see his grandma and he was like hopeful to make this other boy happy. Like the romance took very much a back seat to everything. And I think
they did a good job with it.
Yeah, that was so it was nice that the ending was what it was because you have this moment where I'm 99% sure like that was Tae Myung-ha getting his second chance in like a 19-year-old world. And like 29, potentially.
I think he got reincarnated.
29-year-old went away.
Yeah, what I took away from it was that like he got reincarnated in like a different universe in a different body, like technically a different body, right? Like he died, he was dead, he just got. That's how I took it.
He got a second chance.
But I know some other people took it as like, no, that's his heaven now, right? Like he's dead, and like that's his not heaven, but like that's his afterlife.
That is my heaven too.
Like he
achieved to be running like, towards a cute boy on a beach and get a kiss.
Yeah, like essentially, like he achieved his like afterlife, like his happy afterlife that's gonna go on forever. Basically, like because there's a lot of theories that like whatever when you die and you're in the afterlife, like you are then young forever. Mm-hmm. And so, like, I did see a lot of people that took it as, like, he earned his privilege to go be in the afterlife.
to live his
to like live
best
his
gay
like,
life.
happy afterlife.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
like, but I took it as no, he went back to the real life. Like
Yeah, that's
he's
yeah,
alive.
I saw that too.
He's alive, just in a different
in a
like,
different
timeline.
universe. Yeah. Yeah, again, this story was really interesting because it's open to so many interpretations.
Yeah.
This is a great series that I think lends itself if everyone's like mature and like grounded enough to like disagree and to see different ways and to come at it from different experiences and be like, oh, this is what I thought. Because I think, yeah, kind of going back to what we were saying at the beginning, I think it's important to come at these discussions about these series. I know that people get passionate about them, but like they're just stories on TV.
It's
like
just
it
a
is
TV show.
It's
not worth hating someone over.
real world. It's not life or death.
Yeah.
Like sure, in a series it's life or death, but like in the real world, how we think and feel about this TV series, there's gonna be a new series that we're like, oh my god, this is the best thing. I will die for this man. Like there's always going to be something different and new, and you're going to like find another hill to climb to, you know, and it's just so silly. And so this was an interesting conversation around that I saw on Twitter of like people just talking about the series. I saw that with OnlyFriends too, where people were just excited to talk about these characters and these series.
People did start to get heated.
They did,
with OnlyFriends like a little bit. Like there did become a bit of a divide.
I will say it sat for a minute, and then I started seeing people pop up on the timeline being like, but Mew wasn't the worst character in the world. And you're like, it's okay. You can love him, but like he's still a bad person. Like, yeah. So
I don't know that I would say Mew is a bad person. Boston's a bad person. Boston did me dirty. I held out hope for Boston. Like I really was like a Boston warrior, and in the end, he did me so dirty. I was betrayed. But I think that again, this is good storytelling where like I really, really held on, and like I was sort of standing up for this character that I felt like everybody was sort of being mean to. Like, I was like, you're just being mean to him at this point. Like, sure, people can, like, say something you don't like or do something you don't like. But, like, it doesn't mean you have to be mean. So I was like, people are just being mean to him at this point. And so I was, like, a Boston warrior. Like, I was a Boston defender. And then in the end, when he's still, I was like, I felt betrayed. And, like, that's the mark of good storytelling is that like I felt like as though Boston, a fictional character, not Neo. Me and Neo is chill.
Yeah.
A Boston did me dirty.
Yeah.
Like,
you're like, I believed in you.
We were rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. Yeah.
Oh, it's so true. Yeah, I really love when just like people tell good stories and when you can have conversations, because there are times where we do these series Sundays and we're like, oh god, how are we gonna talk about
like
this
how do we talk about
long?
this without somebody like attacking, like
or just like how do you talk about certain topics or certain stories that can feel really personal. And I think that's what it is that if you really relate to a story and you really have personal ownership of a story or a character, when somebody disagrees with that character or somebody sees that character differently, you're like, no, you're like, it feels like a personal.
It feels like they're attacking you because you see yourself in that. Yeah.
And so I think this is one story that like left so many people like a little confused, but a little like, this is an interesting story, but I think I have opinions.
Everyone was. I feel like, listen, we can all rally together and say that we were all confused at one point or another in this show.
It's true. Okay, the last character was An Kyung Hoon, which was the sweet little like classmate and little bestie of Myung Ha. And I just thought he was such a sweet character. He's one of those characters that a lot of times, like, he did get bullied a little bit throughout this series, and he's like the kind of outcast. And so it was cute to see Myung Ha come into this world as like the cool kid, like the cool senior, and he's like trying to find his new world guide, right? And I love that this is the character he chose to like be besties with and to be like,
sweet friendship.
Show me all the things. I kind of wish they would have developed, like it felt like they were kind of developing Chung Sang-won and An Kyung-hoon.
No, I'm glad they didn't. I was already so confused in this. I did not need another storyline to follow. Truly, I only needed one storyline to follow.
It's true.
Like, yeah, no, I'm so glad that didn't happen because I couldn't have followed it. Not because I didn't want it for any reason, just because like my brain could not have handled that.
Okay, here's the question: would you rewatch it?
I think I have to rewatch it, just like out of sheer confusion, like just to make sure I got all the details right.
I know,
because I like question myself. I'm like, I watched this, but like, did I really understand it? So yeah, I think I have to watch it again.
Yeah, I wanted to come to Vicky because I feel like Vicky 9 times out of 10 have like better subtitles. I feel like
it's like a group of people and they edit each other and they can like work with each other. So it's like multiple interpretations.
Yeah. And so it goes through like a process of like what are these characters actually saying. It was nice. I saw recently somebody on Twitter shouted out the person who wrote a script shouted out the subtitler and they were like, thank you, you like actually subtitled the way that I wanted the story.
Nice.
And I like you rarely see that, and so it was nice to be like, because so many things get lost in translation. Okay, would you recommend this to a first-time KBL watcher?
Actually, yeah, I think I would. Like, I think that it's interesting enough to like pique your interest.
It's so
not
Korean,
super romance focused, so like it doesn't get too heavy in that aspect, right? It's not too like. Okay, right? Like, because sometimes the romances can be like so over the top and unbelievable that it takes you out of the story almost. I think a first timer could watch this.
Yeah, especially if you're into into K dramas, because I'm also watching My Demon right now, and this feels very much like supernatural, death world, all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think
it's approachable.
I totally think a first timer could watch this.
Is there a KBL where you're like, no, a first timer should not watch this?
Probably The Eighth Sense.
That's what I was thinking.
It's a lot. Like, it's a lot.
Yeah, because most KBLs are pretty approachable.
Yeah. I don't know that I would recommend the Holland one, Ocean.
Oh, Ocean Likes Me?
Yes.
Ocean Likes Me. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that I would recommend that to a first timer because, like, I think you have to. It takes a little bit of like BL knowledge. It jumps around a lot. I think it might like confuse you. So yeah, I would say Eighth Sense, and then like Ocean Likes Me. Yeah, that one.
Any of the Ocean BLs? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. This is so good. I enjoyed this series. Yeah, I think I do need to rewatch it.
Yeah, and before we go, the first thing I want to remind you about. See what I did there? Is that. Yes. Our friend, someone that we are a huge fan of, is coming to America first. I am so excited.
Yes.
First, we'll be having 2 fan meetings in America, one in New York City and one in Dallas, Texas. New York City is unfortunately already sold out, but you can still keep up with all of the fun stuff going on with New York City at Starstruck Media and at OMO Events, both of which are linked in the description below. That being said, there are still tickets available for Dallas, Texas. You guys should totally check it out. It is the very first in-person fan meeting for a BL actor in America. So, like, we're making history with this. I would say, besides Zinunu, but that was a little bit of a different situation because the concept is different here. So I highly recommend go to the site, check out the concept. It's a really interesting concept. It's the very first one in Dallas, the very first one happening in Texas, very first one happening in New York City.
So exciting.
Yeah, so not America, but first one in Texas, first one in New York. Check it out. There's still tickets available. You can buy them now. I would say it's a reasonable price. I think it's going to be a party. I think it's going to be a good time. We will be at New York City.
It's not LA.
We hope to see you there. And I know that Dallas is going to be a party. So check it out.
Yes. This has been Let's Talk BL. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow all things Let's Talk BL at Let's Talk BL.